Hi, this is Ricky Spencer for Australia Sociological Association, um, my series Media Voices. And today we have an extremely special guest, someone whom I admire deeply. And as that, henceforth, the flag behind me and one of my Indigenous paintings in solidarity to my brother, to really kind of bring us together. So I'm Ricky Spencer. I'm on the lands of the Wurundjeri, Woiwurrung and Burrung people of the Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to past, present leaders, merging that this land was never ceded. Russell Weston is a proud Yorta Yorta man from a region between the Goulburn and Murray rivers in Victoria, New South Wales. He co-founded and is co-chairman of the First Nations Rainbow in 2018 to support our First Nations LGBTQIA+ communities. Ethics, human rights, and support for self-determination of First Nation people are close to his heart. Russell describes himself as a people person, ambitious, and wants to build a supportive community services that is founded in equality and purpose. His personal mission is driven by altruism, and he wants to create an equitable and inclusive and just society for all. Russell, it is with great privilege that I introduce you to our wonderful community. Thank you for being a part today, and tell us the Russell Weston story.
Well, thank you, sister, for the lovely words. First of all, I want to acknowledge where I'm coming from. I'm coming from the land of the Gadigal people of the Yorta Nation here in Sydney, where I live and work. I'm also a very proud Yorta Yorta man. So I grew up at my community home at Cumberganja, down on the border of Victoria and New South. I have a lot of connections to a lot of mob in Victoria, where I lived and worked for many, many, many years. And so I have my connections to there. I'm also part of First Nations Rainbow was an organisation that we set up in probably mid-2018 here in Sydney, was to make sure that we had a voice and that First Nations people are visible within the LGBTQI space, because we've been sort of excluded from the conversation. And it's about the conversation, but also about having a space for us to get together and to celebrate our culture and to celebrate our community. So a lot of our community events we've had over the years was mainly about in Oxford Street, and why we've done that for was to make sure that we are part of the community and to let the wider community and stuff know that we are here, we are proud First Nations peoples, we also proud a brother boy or sister girl kind of. Then just not even a year, September last year, I was elected to be Region 20 representative to the International Association of Pride Organisers. I am the only Indigenous person to be ever elected into that position in my region. I represent 20 countries in my region. So all the Pride organisations with each of them countries, voted for me to be the representative to Interpride. From that election, I am a member of the Human Rights and Diversity Committee of Interpride. I'm also a community member of the World Pride Committee, and just recently I've been elected as a board member. So I'm a board of director for the organisation. I am the only Indigenous person on the planet to be part of this organisation. So that's pretty much me, sister.
Wow, that's fantastic. And tell us a little bit about that, because that seems to be really positioning you in a global sense, and you have that responsibility of representing so many people across different nations. What do you see is your role in bringing people together?
I think being part of Interpride and as the only Indigenous person on there, I do try to give the board, and I also I've got to mention I'm also a committee member of the Global Advisory Council so this is made up of all of LGBTQI people around the globe. And one thing that I do try to do is to push the First Nations cultural and awareness and the struggles that we face here within Australia. A lot of the global members don't know the true history. Well, what they see and hear on social media or about Australia has been a great country and a prosperous country and they look after its citizens kind of stuff. And then on the other hand, with the First Nations space, we don't really, that kind of systemic racism towards us as the First Peoples comes from all walks of the communities, even from the LGBTQI community, from corrections, from the police, and from community. And I think that when I do speak, and listening to the 20 countries and the pride groups within that 20 countries and hearing some of their stories and the struggles that they face is, it is that kind of, it's really sad to see that in the 20th century that the issues around, equality and social justice, not just here in Australia, but in the Oceania area, such as like PNG and Tonga and Samoa, and the Cook Islands and stuff, and the issues, what's happening around there. But there are good pride organisations doing amazing stuff in them areas, and it's a kind of, little things, big things grow. The more that we talk about issues to affecting our people and that we are there in solidarity. So when issues come up in my region, I take them issues to the board of Interpride and we discuss what we can do to support the pride organisations within, Oceania, but also too with a global spectrum. Interpride does give out, grants to LGBTQI organisations around the globe. One thing that they do as well is when a number of other countries, because of homosexuality, is illegal. So when they do apply for a grant per se, when they transfer the funds from Interpride into their account, they can't use, it's got to be very secretive. They can't use LGBTQI, they can't use Interpride because of governments and the police monitored their bank accounts, whatever the case may be. So we sort of that kind of secretly as well, doing and supporting LGBTQI pride within the globe, really.
And that's incredible, Russell, to have all that responsibility and have that privilege of talking to wonderful people. What is let's now go, with all this that you do, let's go and get to know the Russell Weston. What was it like, Russell, for you growing up on country?
I had a very good life growing up. I was raised by my grandmother, who instilled, I think also too, even growing up as a young kid and as a teenager, I wasn't really attracted to guys. I had girlfriends.
Okay.
So I wasn't really, some people have a story where they know in all their life they were, gay or trans, whatever. For me, it was really, I was playing football and I had girlfriends and, and I got a beautiful daughter, and stuff. And yeah, it really wasn't really interested. And then, all of a sudden, it's just, I'm a sort of a baby bloomer, if you know what I mean, in that space. But I'm a baby bloomer, but I'm doing a lot of stuff now, if you know what I mean. I'm on all these committees kind of stuff, but I grew up at my community at Cummeragunga. So it was good growing up because you had that kind of support from your cousins, on the banks of the Murray River and going swimming and, going paddock bashing in the cars out in the paddock and skidding around and, doing things as a kid. I had a very good childhood, growing up. And I think that was, mainly by my grandmother, and like I said, he instilled in me about caring for people, about respecting people, respecting elders, and from that kind of stuff, and having a lot of aunties involved in my life, some deadly aunties who supported me, not as a gay man and stuff, as a brother boy, but as me as a child, that nurturing and that respect kind of thing. So it was great growing up on country and getting to do amazing things, going swimming and, going hunting and, and yeah, it was great. I never had a dull moment growing up at Cummeragunga.
And Russell, how did you come to connect with your community and the LGBTIQ community within our First Nation space?
So I think when I was living in Melbourne, living in Melbourne kind of thing, I was like, I noticed a bit of a change in starting to like guys, if you know what I mean, kind of thing. And then like, yeah, and my first experience and stuff was a bit sort of out there craziness kind of thing, and then, well, yeah, then it felt kind of right kind of thing. And then I started hanging out with a couple of cousins who are part of the community, and me being very, straight acting, if you want to call it that kind of
Yeah.
thing. So I don't, I was still playing football, but I was still going to gay club with my cousins and still trying to find and navigate where I was supposed to be part of the community kind of thing. And, one of our elders down in Melbourne, Ronnie Johnson was an elder down in Melbourne. He started an organisation called Out Blacks. He sort of, took me under his wing, him and his partner Grant kind of stuff. And that's when I started getting connected to more the LGBTQI stuff and finding things I'd never seen before in the community, going at gay club, but also going out and just doing social stuff and supporting. And that's how I sort of got involved. And I didn't do anything for a number of years. I was just still trying to find my way and navigate my way around the LGBTQI space until I come to Sydney. I come to Sydney for work and I started, getting involved with Mardi Gras. I joined Mardi Gras as a member, and then I sat on a couple of committees, and that's how I got really involved in the LGBTQI space. And just hearing aunties talk about, standing up and having a voice and that not leaving anybody behind, and that's how I still got more involved. And I sat on a number of committees, and then from that I started, and that's how First Nations Rainbow come about, because at the time that I've been in Sydney, the only time we seemed to get together is when it was through the Mardi Gras parade. So prior to that, there was no community events or no organisation. That's how First Nations Rainbow started. And from that, it's just become, organisations, non-Indigenous organisations coming on board as sponsors and donating money. And Mardi Gras become one of our first major partnership was with the Sydney Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras. And they was a big support of our organisation. And that's where I was very comfortable just doing the First Nations Rainbow kind of stuff, very happy and doing community events. And then when Interpride popped up, so with Interpride, First Nations Rainbow, we joined Interpride as a member of the organisation. And from that, I had a Zoom meeting, must have been about a year later, where we had privileged white people on there talking about First Nations peoples. And I took that as I said to myself, I'm going to speak up here. I'm not going to sit back and allow these white fellas to talk about a poor First Nations people. And that's how I spoke up. And from that, all of the organisations, the Pride organisations in Oceania wanted me to run in the upcoming election to become the Region 20 representative. And that's how I got there.
Wow. And Russell, just on that development of that space you've created, if we have any young people who are identifying as LGBTIQ and who are First Nation, how can they contact you through that organisation if they would like to connect and be involved?
They can. We do have a website. It's just sort of www. Oh, sorry, I've got to be a big thing because we're going through a transition with our website at the moment, so I won't put the website, but you can follow go into our Facebook page, so just First Nations Rainbow. We do have a Twitter account and an Instagram page as well, but mainly is the Facebook account. Or if you are in LinkedIn, just message us on there, and myself or one of the other board members will reach out to you and have a chat.
And we'll put those in our links below once the video. So if anyone's interested, or you're an ally and you have friends who are feeling a bit lonely or isolated or coming out, who are identifying, who are First Nation heritage, please connect, because I know Russell's organisation do a lot of great work in view. And if people want to get involved, Russell, can people volunteer and help?
Yeah, I think with first, because of COVID, so we haven't had an event for almost a year now. But one of the things too with First Nations Rainbow, we're the only Indigenous organisation in the country to allow non-Indigenous people to become members of organisation. Why we've done that for? We wanted to make sure that we are very inclusive of everybody. There are rules in place about having too many white people on the board. Because then it becomes like tokenistic. I mean, not tokenistic, but you have too many white people, you can probably then claim to speak for our mob. So it's sort of like a 50-30 kind of thing on the board. But yeah, so if you want to join, just inbox us. Our website's getting updated. So once that comes out in the next few weeks, kind of stuff, hopefully we can pull in the link in the description, kind of thing. But I'm also too with Interpride. Interpride holds the license to World Pride as well and Global Pride. So in the next 2 weeks, World Pride is happening in Copenhagen. And then after Copenhagen, World Pride is coming to the land of the Gadigal people here in Sydney.
That's
so 2023. Yeah.
And we'll make sure that we speak on our next in our next meeting online, that we will hopefully we'll be able to tell us and share with us your experiences of those events and the importance, so that our listeners can really engage with that and learn from that. Some of the issues that you can bring forward to us of what's happening worldwide, because that's important. Russell, as we're sort of nearing the end of our first conversation,
No.
we have to sort of ask, Russell, where is the future that you see for our queer Black community in Australia at the moment?
I think that I think the future for us and stuff is that we need to be, the drivers of our destiny in the sense of the LGBTQI space for First Nation, and not be led by, people who not to be political correct, but privileged white people who think they know better for us. I think that we are a powerful people. We are a strong people. We should be the drivers of our destiny, and making sure that we pull ourselves forward. And I think that if you are out there, if you're Indigenous or non-Indigenous, your voice is more, powerful than my voice. I have a bit of a thing about, people saying to me that, I have a powerful voice within the community. I might have one, but there are people out there who don't have that voice. And I think it's very important that if you are, a friend or an auntie or an uncle, that, if somebody out there who's going through problems in the community, about their sexuality or gender, I think it's about giving everybody a platform and a voice to voice their own, tell their own stories and their own identity, who they are as a person. I think that, and going forward with all that kind of stuff there and stuff is that to make sure that we are connected to each other as first peoples, connected to us as the first peoples, but also connected to a non-Indigenous community as well, and making positive change.
That's wonderful.
And it's got to be led by us as the first peoples.
Absolutely. And in our next conversation, Russell, that we'll have, it'll be great for us to explore two issues. One is self-determination and advocacy in detail, and perhaps you'll be able to share your experiences with both, and a vision of how people who identify within our community who would like to pursue it, and also allies and workers within like privileged settings, social workers, youth workers, who can understand how they can work with us within the spaces as opposed to running the space.
And I think it's very important too, sis, is, working with us, not against us.
Yeah, and understanding our spaces, our languages, our culture, which is something that we hope within this series we'll be able to impart for you. Our aim is to give you an insight into how to work more effectively with LGBTIQ people of First Nation heritage, so that we can work and be self-determining to create a space for us where we can feel safe, welcomed, have access to services and resources, and run services and resources best for our community. Thank you so much, Russell, for our first conversation piece, and we look forward to having another.
I'm looking forward for the next one.
And just to give our listeners, because it's all about learning, how do we say see you next time in Yorta Yorta language?
Well, that's a question I don't know.
Wow, that's something that we'll look for next. Our next session is doing some languages to share with everybody.
Well, I'm starting. I'm doing a bit of one thing I promised one of our proud sister girls in South Australia, I just went to the Better Together conference, was about sign language.
Oh,
So just to know a few words, and because that she didn't feel part of the conversation and the chat. So a number of our brother boys and sister boys promised there that we learn a few signs before we meet her again in January in Cairns. So
lovely.
yeah.
So we'll do that as well, because we want to create spaces for our whole community to be inclusive, and we want to share the rich culture, diversities, different countries within the inner space, different languages that we want to rejuvenate and really bring and empower people to be proud to use that. So
I think one thing one of the things as well is with you know foster parents and stuff, and foster parents are taking on children who might come into their care because of their
yes,
whatever the issues with their families kind of stuff, but come into care and if they're a young kid who's going through problems because of their gender, and I think that's an issue that we also need to talk about
yes,
as a community as well.
yeah.
We taking a kid from a family who has their ties and their kinship into a family, but also they might be going through the changes of sexuality or trying to find their identity. And I think that should be a conversation we also should have sometime soon.
And we will do that soon in our series with Russell Weston. And we do welcome questions. If you have ideas or some things that you would like Russell Weston to articulate and provide his lived experiences, we'll be more than happy to do that as well. So thank you again for watching this, and we'll look forward to talking with Russell in our next